All right, good morning. I went live just a little bit early because I wanted to show you all the TA that we're looking at here. Um, see, this blue line is the top of our triangle, the bullish pennant triangle, whatever you want to call it. This is an hourly chart, and we've got about a minute to see if we are going to close under this or if we'll have another wick underneath of this again. And one of the reasons this is important because a lot of times you get a good entry on a long when you buy the retest of a breakout. So we broke out here. This line might be slightly off because I'm not quite at the highs there, but anywhere within this area, if it closes and we get a bounce, that'll be great. But looking kind of suspicious at the moment. We're right on the 4-hour mid Bollinger Band. Again, just zooming out on this triangle that I was telling you about. I have my lines extended, so the drawing is not too good, but you can see top line here that we are retesting currently, and the bottom line that have left far behind for the moment. Go back into the hourly here. Not looking too good right now, but again, this line is somewhat subjective as long as you're close to it. Not terrible, but the next hour or so could be pretty important to see what's going to happen for the rest of excuse me, or the next 2 hours, I believe, because we have a 4-hour candle that we're looking at right now. Yeah, we just hit halfway through the 4-hour candle. Hoping we can get a nice little bounce on that mid Bollinger Band. But yeah, this is the interesting TA that kind of was teasing in the title, but definitely what we're keeping an eye on. If you want price to continue to go and run and shoot up, you want to see a bounce here in the next few hours. Let's take a look in at that 1 hour. I'm kind of expecting it to get down to the 100 on the 1 hour, and that might be where we are bouncing. See where the 200 on the 1 hour was resistance back here a few times. It broke out of that. If we are going to start a trend, it's going to have to bounce off some moving averages. So, very interesting spot. Something we'll keep an eye on. But other things we can talk about today as well. Oh, excuse me. One of the things that we have been keeping an eye on has been the flow of GBTC ETFs, or their ETF, I should say. 300 million out yesterday. A very large number. I think a lot of people were expecting the ETF flows to have decreased significantly from GBTC going forward because I believe it was Genesis. They had to liquidate in order to cover their debts as part of their bankruptcy. That was supposed to be over with, so people thought, okay, well, the GBTC selling probably done with then. Well, yesterday it came out 300 million, which was kind of surprising because price didn't really go down much yesterday. We're looking, and it didn't go down very much at all. I think it's causing some of the stuff that's happening today, as far as causing the price to go down today. But again, we are at a pretty key juncture here with that triangle. So we'll see how the other ETFs respond today. It was interesting because there wasn't a lot going on yesterday outside of the GBTC selling. 223 million in net outflow yesterday. BlackRock only put in 21 million in inflow. Now they're still getting inflows. They aren't selling more than they're buying, but you look, you got 308 million the previous trading day, go down to 21 million. It's kind of interesting to see some of the wild swings in inflows and outflows just on these. 40 million was really incredible. Which one is this? BitB? I forget who makes that one. But they beat out BlackRock and Fidelity combined. I think they had, that looks about more inflows than all of the other inflows combined in just one of them. That was kind of a standout. They haven't had a ton of good days like that. They had a 67 million back there, but definitely something we're keeping an eye on with GBTC. They are getting close to the real flippening, which would be um, BlackRock owning more than they do. And even if BlackRock doesn't continue buying at a torrid pace, as long as GBTC keeps selling BlackRock more. Trying to find. I was hoping there was a chart that showed their total holdings in Bitcoin. There's another one out there that's pretty interesting. Shows you kind of what they hold, and I forget who it was. I think it was Hodl 15 Capital who posted the chart where you could see on a line graph the balances of GBTC decreasing, and you could see the balances of BlackRock increase. And that is something to keep an eye on. It's looking very likely that GBTC is not going to be the biggest Bitcoin ETF for very long. Another very important thing, if you have not followed me on X yet, please do. Twitter, whatever you want to refer to it as, please do. I'm going to share all of the stuff that I think is important information. I repost outflows, inflows, important news such as this. You're seeing another company implement the Michael Saylor strategy of making Bitcoin their core treasury asset of the company. They're going to put in an initial 1 billion Japanese yen. I forget what they said that was. It wasn't a lot in American, especially compared to what MicroStrategies. But it's interesting to see we finally have another company kind of incorporating this strategy of going all in on Bitcoin. We'll see if they have similar success to MicroStrategy. Definitely an interesting time to start doing it at the highs, but that's just kind of how these things go during hype cycles. People kind of pile in when we're at the highs. There was some just kind of generic economic data I was a little bit concerned about seeing. The delinquency rate on multifamily housing is the highest it's been since 2013. Delinquency leads to eviction and foreclosure. And something's going to have to give at some point with such high delinquency rates. If they can't pay their rent as it is, and rent has increased by so much recently, where are they going to go? So I come from housing. My last job, I worked in housing for 15 years or so. If this is happening on multifamily housing, it's probably also happening on single family housing, just maybe not to the same extent. But what you're going to see is more evictions and more foreclosures. There's going to have to be some sort of event that leads to more federal or state funding to help bail these people out. And, I feel really bad for those people, but this is just an awful cycle that has happened. The 2008 housing crisis, terrible. We saw foreclosure rates where I worked at up to, I believe 9% or higher. And so many people were at least 90 days behind on their house payment. I don't know how these people caught up, but they did. But it's just something to keep an eye on. And particularly when you look at credit card rates, I posted something about that. Well, I haven't seen it on my timeline recently here, but what I'm looking at is we have the highest credit card utilization ever. It's increasing exponentially. I mean, it just seems like something has got to give. You go back, you think about the movie The Big Short, you're looking at people are out there, buying multiple homes. You had all kinds of people doing these things. Today, we have people buying Airbnbs left and right so that they can rent them out to people. Um, you have credit card rates going through the roof. You've got multifamily housing delinquencies increasing. Probably got single family delinquencies increasing. You're going to have evictions. You're going to have um, foreclosures. All of the data is pointing to an unsustainable path. But similar to trading, you can have something be unsustainable longer than you would think. So I think even in the movie The Big Short, um, the dude Jordan, I believe Jordan Belfort. Anyway, I think I don't know why I can't remember his name right now, but anyway, he continued to short. He continued to increase his position and hold over time because he was so confident in what he was seeing around him that the market would crash. And looking at the data right now, I'm not sure how anyone can look at it and have a incredibly positive outlook. Inflation has been insane. If rates continue to stay as high as they are, and credit card rates continue to increase, how are people going to be able to pay this off? There's something broken somewhere, and unfortunately, I think something is going to happen at some point soon. Everything is kind of pointed to something. Oh, yeah. Here's another thing that I was wanting to discuss. Talking about horrible economic data, the number of full-time jobs is down. Now, they reported that jobs were up quite a bit. I forget how much. Was it like 300,000 new jobs they said in the jobs report recently? But 6,000 full-time jobs were lost. So we had 300,000 new part-time jobs. And from what I'm seeing, people keep saying that um, this data gets revised and lowered anyway. So they announce the data, they make it look really good. And you'll notice this with all of the financial data, all the economic data they put out. They craft it in a way, they create the equations for the reports so that it will look well. I mean, just look at how unemployment's calculated. That's a mess. They'll do anything to make their data look good because they want to support their political faction, I suppose. But full-time jobs being down is terrible. Part-time jobs aren't going to help people pay off those credit card debts. Part-time jobs aren't going to help people, um, pay off their delinquency on their rent or their single-family home. And if people are struggling and they're finding themselves delinquent on these things, how are they supposed to do that when there's less full-time jobs available? It's a very unique situation we're in right now. It's very concerning to me as far as how things are trending. And you've got millions of illegal immigrants entering the country, and regardless of your opinion on whether they should or should not be in the country, and this one kind of points it out as well, we are giving money away, we are losing jobs, there's more part-time jobs. I forget where it was. There was a chart that I had seen about native born Americans, so natural citizens. Employment has been tanking for those people. Maybe these illegal immigrants are taking a bunch of those part time jobs that it is creating, but at the same time, a lot of people coming into the country. All right, I'm not going to get political on the live stream, but we did mention these convergences on the moving averages on X. These are usually areas of volatility. Um, a lot of times you really don't see consolidation on them, which is kind of interesting that that happened. But I did point out that going into the 8th, 7th, and 8th there, that looked like a time where we would have some volatility, and that kind of did come to pass. 7th and 8th, we kind of broke out, up, and getting a little bit more volatile. Something kind of had to give. It did. And this is the chart that I wanted to show you all. This is the number of Bitcoin held. Okay, my head's not entirely in the way, but GBTC started with 619,000. BlackRock week 1 only had 2,600. As of week 13, which I suppose was last Friday, I don't know what that was about. As of last Friday, had 263,899. So the gap has been closed. 60,000 Bitcoin. They sold $300 million worth yesterday. It's probably not going to be very long until BlackRock holds more. Whether BlackRock's buying a lot or GBTC is selling a lot or a combination of both, it's going to change. GBTC needs to do something to lower their customers. And here, I thought this was interesting. This person says that GBTC outflows will likely remain below 100 million. Obviously, this person was wrong because yesterday's was 300 million, but I thought that was interesting at the time. I was kind of hoping that was true because the information with the Genesis selling being completed through GBTC. This is the article about the credit card debt going to new all-time highs. I've already discussed that. There was some information about Quan and Terraform found liable for fraud. Genesis, here we go. Genesis has finished selling $2.1 billion worth of its Grayscale Bitcoin ETF holding. So that was a lot of money continuously being poured out of Grayscale and was not being distributed back into other ETFs. That's actually kind of very bullish in my opinion. First of all, the selling is done with for the Genesis stuff, but that 2.1 billion was able to be absorbed from selling. This wasn't someone selling to go into another position with BlackRock. This was selling for dollars so they could have dollars. There's a big difference. I think there was a lot of speculation that people were selling their GBTC so they could buy the BlackRock ETF or the Fidelity or any of the other options. There was a lot of thought going into people selling and buying into other ones so they could reduce their fee. Now we've learned that it was a liquidation and the market just kind of absorbed it. Price didn't really decrease too much. Let's look at the daily chart. And here we see it bouncing. Like I said, this line may not be perfectly accurate, that blue line. But anywhere within here, if we got that bounce, that's great. I thought it would come down to the 100. It hasn't, but good for the time being. We're still early in the hour, though. The daily. So let's just assume they started selling back here at the top. $2.1 billion worth Bitcoin, and price is only down $4,000 from the top. That's 10% maybe. Not even that much. Maybe 6%, something like that. I guess I could measure. 2.1 billion, and we're pretty much back to work. Very impressive. The other thing that was very, very interesting is they are kind of hinting at not lowering rates when they thought they would. There was a lot of predictions that they would begin lowering rates in June, but rates they're actually kind of talking about keeping them higher longer because inflation isn't coming down like they would have liked. Again, this is another thing that's kind of pointing towards something going wrong in the market. Something is off. Obviously, inflation hurting a lot of people right now, but rates are going to continue to stay high because inflation is high. So it's pretty much looking like to me the Fed is saying, yeah, pretty much something has to break before we lower rates to a level that'll help most people. So in the meantime, we're going to have incredibly high credit card rates, incredibly high mortgage rates, incredibly high all of this stuff until pretty much something breaks, forcing them have to reduce them quicker to help people because inflation just isn't coming down the way they wanted it to. Uh, there was some interesting data, again, talking about jobs. Education, health, and government jobs accounted for more than half of all job gains. Well, education, typically government funded, health, government subsidized, and government jobs. So you've got the government responsible for a large majority of jobs, and they can continue to do this to make their numbers look good. You see, these are just different percentages of what types of jobs are being added. They've been pretty narrow lately and pretty stacked in the pink. You'll look the pink. Um, some of the others are usually all about the same size, going back all the way. But a lot of the other areas have decreased to essentially nothing. Some have even started losing jobs. Um, One way to get your unemployment rate to zero is if you keep voting in socialists and communists who would love for everyone to have a government job. Every job would be supported by the government, no free market. And then, of course, your leader would look amazing because no one's unemployed. But a lot of people would be happy in that sort of a system. I don't care if you think socialism's good or not. The U.S. rate futures price in 2 rate cuts. There was three. I'm pretty certain that was three. So that was actually some bad news. And let's actually go back and look at SPX. That came out. We dropped on that. What's interesting here, in such a great channel going up, and it went below it. So let's start back here, go here. See, there's something kind of happening here that looks like what we're dealing with on Bitcoin, where, and again, these lines aren't perfect, but where we broke below it, tried to reclaim it, having trouble. If it gets rejected from here, things could turn pretty bearish because this is the channel that it was in on the X 500. You get down here, who knows where it goes? I wouldn't imagine it comes down terribly far, especially with rate cuts around the corner. But here's that data with the full-time jobs going down and part-time jobs. Oh, those were actually up 691,000. Is it 300,000 earlier? Yeah, this is not good. Like, this is one of those things where they say, "Hey, we've got 685,000 new jobs, but 99% of those were part-time, and we actually lost full-time jobs." It's one of those things where the data, the headline looks great, but the data is actually very good. And this is something you'll notice a lot with economic data. This is why you have to kind of understand how they put this data together. A lot of people don't understand how unemployment rate is even figured out. Even that number is very deceiving. The actual more information about rate cuts. Here you had Goldman Sachs added to authorized participants on the BlackRock ETF. Funny because they said they uh, had to do with it, but now they're an authorized participant. Here's the native-born workers. So this is very interesting. Native versus foreign-born workers. You see the red line here is native-born Americans, and the foreign-born Americans, they are doing well. They continue to get employment, where those who are natural citizens kind of struggling. There is a reason for that. Interesting analysis I saw here. And I share these things when I think they're. I'm not really following Ethereum too well right now, but I do see that they are talking about another issuance change on how they reward those who are staking. And I thought this was kind of fun. They continue to change it, and that's one of the good things about Bitcoin is really isn't a good way to change the issuance without everyone's support. And we've seen hard forks things come with different changes, but Ethereum, I don't know why they just continue to change their issuance method for whatever reason. And considering they're up for ETF approval in May, it's very odd that they would consider doing something at this time when they're being scrutinized for being a security, for being too centralized. They decide to kind of make a centralized decision that they need to change the issuance. Odd. But the other odd thing here is that whoever posted this said gold has no issuance changes, and that's just kind of a lie because you can change how much is being mined. It's not like Bitcoin. Every 10 minutes, you're only going to get X amount of Bitcoin. Whereas gold, if you invest another $1 million, you hire more people, you'll probably get more gold out of the ground than you would have if you had just done what you. I thought it was interesting, but it isn't really a great example just because that. Oh, and that trade idea that I had last week, I did post that it was invalidated. Um, here was the idea. Where did I post that it was invalid? Oh, here we go. Yeah, I was sick, so I posted that the trade idea that I shared, I believe it was invalidated. It didn't fill when I wanted it. Okay, so this is another reason why you should follow me on X and Twitter, because when I do post these trades, a lot of times I just don't get back on TradingView and post updates there. But I will post on X and Twitter. Um, I thought there was a chance that it still may play out, but I don't know, middle of range. I wasn't too thrilled about it. I was really kind of hoping to catch it sooner here while the bands were still going down. And they started to contract, and really at that point, I wasn't really sold on getting back to that take profit. You'll notice the bands are within the take profit order down here. The risk and reward wasn't really worth it at that 3-to-1 ratio there. But wow, yeah, that pretty much covers all of the stuff as far as the Bitcoin TA and all the stuff I've posted since the last live. I'm gonna zoom in that hourly again, still right around this line. And this line wasn't super perfectly drawn, so there is some give here, and it wasn't broken super convincingly. Had we went down and closed on that 100 below 70k down there, well, significant. Okay, I would have been more convinced we're going to get down. one of the things I'm looking at right now on the hourly. Of course, we are near this potential support from that retest on that triangle breakout. My indicator doesn't really support a quick bounce right here, but the RSI is low, very low. You could get a trend change. You notice there's multiple trend changes here where this orange line starts going up and coming back down. Sometimes these trend changes can be extended. You'll notice this one. Trend changed here. Stay down. You'll notice that blue RSI stay below that trend. And this can happen quite a bit. This doesn't work as well on shorter time frames. You'll notice there's flipping and flopping going back here, but it can indicate tops, trend changes pretty well. Again, I like to do multiple time frames, comparing here and there. Again, for the next hour and a half, looking at that mid band for the 4 hour. I kind of like the 4 hour potentially bounce here just because we have a pretty low value on the stochastic advanced here. You'll notice going back here recently, this is an area where it kind of stalls out and turns around. It hasn't been oversold for a very long time. If we do kind of bounce here, even if it's not dramatic, it will continue to kind of round out over the rest of the day today. If it just kind of hovers in this area with that, even without the count. Something I'm keeping an eye on, but really you're hoping that we get the bounce soon and close back above that blue. Daily, again, a lot of this TA goes down to whether or not we close above the triangle. The trend on the RSI is up. Stochastic is up. All the moving averages are up. They're ribboned. Everything looks super bullish. But go back into the triangle after breaking out of it, there's a very good chance you're going to break under it following. So something to keep an eye on what we do here in the next hours. Not really willing to take a stance on what I think is going to happen. The weekly doesn't give a ton of information. I think the last live I did, I mentioned, I think it could very well kind of slowly grind down price, then accelerate upward again after a while. But honestly, anything's kind of on the table with all the ETF stuff. And watching the TA right now, very interesting spot that we're in. 5-day chart, very similar to the weekly as far as how we are coming down. If you do get that bounce, you could probably end up getting a bearish divergence. Price is much higher. Look at Ethereum on the hourly. Kind of at some support here on the moving averages. Got a little bit of support going back in the past here as well. Would be a good area for it to bounce as well. Like Ethereum is kind of having a hard time versus Bitcoin. Right? It did bounce tremendously over the last few days. Litecoin kind of looks bad. Looks like it wants to turn downhill. Which is unfortunate because it had a chance to break its 200 week and it just can't. it did break it here, and that looked super good, but then it just got swatted back down, and you're getting kind of the same thing happening. It's trying to break it, and it just can't. I do think it will after time here, but it's just not going to be. All right, let's look at Link. Link, pretty decent. This is a weekly chart, though. I would love to see it bounce here on that mid band after having support on the 200 week. Drill in all the way to the hourly. That looks terrible. Under all your moving averages down. Same thing on the 4 hour. Link kind of looks. I wouldn't be shocked if it doesn't come back down to the 200-day around 50. Doge is actually holding pretty well on the day. I'm begging for a correction. It looks like a lot of these alts are kind of going down even further. That would also kind of hint at likely Bitcoin continuing to go down. But it's one of those things where we're just going to have to continue to follow and really see what's going on over the next few hours here, especially. This area is huge, hugely important right here. We want to see that. Could see that. And honestly, if you close convincingly back in this triangle, like I said earlier, I expect it to continue to go down lower, break below the triangle, and it could be kind of an ugly April. Take a look at the monthly chart and see there. I mean, the monthly chart is overbought on just about every metric. Yeah, we talked about this in the last one. It's a little concerning that you're seeing potential top on the, at least for next, maybe. The reason I say that, there's a huge gap in the RSI and its trend, so it has room to cool off. And you got a potential here. So if we close even where we're at right now in the next month or two, you've got a chance for a cross under on the monthly. Those, if you look at this indicator, crossovers and unders are important on the monthly. You had a crossover up here, up at the top, 2017, did not cross back over. You might have crossed over here, but you didn't really cross over into here. It would have been $3,500, and you didn't cross back under until 83. That would have been a good trade. First crossed over here at 8,100. Cross back under. We'll just give the benefit of the doubt here. 36,600. Crossed back over. This one was a bad trade. A lot of people got burned by that move. 61. Yeah, down to 38. That was a bad. Got a crossover here. Didn't cross back under. Crossover 37.6. Might have a cross under around 50 or 60. One thing we haven't really seen on the monthly chart, I'm going to go to BLX. We haven't seen a monthly bear div. And I think, I kind of hope this is the cycle we, what I would like to see is a peak here. My head is not in the way. something like that, where price and just off the chart there. That um, this would give us the bearish divergence on the monthly. Would give us a downtrend to monitor on this particular indicator. And in which case, you would also get the bullish div on the RSI. You actually did kind of have one back here. You usually get kind of these twin peaks, but I haven't gotten a bullish or a bearish divergence on my stochastic weights. Honestly, more than anything. And when there is a divergence on these, usually almost always plays out on such high time frames. So something I'm watching. And then if you do get this sort of movement in price, you have that trend line down here where if you break it, you can have something like that and you can start the next cycle. 2027, that would be the next cycle. Maybe that's when you get 200K. But you would pay attention to this trend line down here. Break the trend lines on those things, it's very similar. And I doubt we'll go above 100. That's impossible. Alrighty. So we're going to switch back, look back at the hourly, take a look where we're at for this particular moment. Need to remove all these horrible drawings. Oh boy, we're down underneath the 100. Is definitely looking bad. Like I was just saying, we were looking at alts. All of the alt charts looked kind of bad, and crypto kind of moves as one. Now, Bitcoin could lead and change things, but when everything is looking bad, even when there's hope on Bitcoin and Ethereum, still expect things to go the same direction from my experience, what I've seen. Yeah, just a bit concerning what we're looking at here. And I did want to share, I have a new card, my new indicator that I'm working on. Using PineScript version 5, I updated the fancy moving average. I've got to make some more adjustments on it, but I added this table in at the top right. Gives you information about the moving average over its period. We call this the inclusion period, where it's highlighted here. And the data from the end moved forward, so you offset it forward, is essentially what we call the tail data. And when you're trading above your tail moving average, you're usually in a bullish pattern. Look at this. We broke above it, and then we stayed above its previous moving average. So this is a 200 moving average. So go back 200 periods. Moving average was right here. And I've noticed this for a very long time that tail moving averages are kind of important. You'll notice here, it kind of acted as an area of resistance along with the actual moving average. And I just gotta say, I think to me it's a pretty clear indication things are changing trend. Now this 2017, that was a little bit different. Let's take a look at something like you have it here. acting kind of as resistance. Here you got that breakout. That's kind of confirming you're entering into a new type of trend. Even though you did get the pullback, you got the bounce immediately. You didn't even come back in to this range between the price and the previous moving average. So this is definitely something that I think holds a lot of weight, just because you see a lot of it going on where price reacts to these things. And I absolutely love the input groups. That was one of the features I recommended years ago. They finally put in here, so all the information about the moving average itself you can manage here, and then other stuff can be grouped. I just love it. I need to add in some more options here before I go to do that, but I might make some videos about this particular indicator. I truly believe my moving averages are probably the best average on trading. They give you tons of options, tons of information, and here what I like to see is everything's kind of pointing bullish. Candle. We have more green candles than red candles by 8. Our tail range, we were above the previous tail. Our tails versus candles, our last 200 candles have all been above the previous tail moving average. That's very bullish. And you can also notice trend changes. Go back and do like a bar replay, see how these numbers change. It's very interesting to get a look at noticing when trends change, noticing when things are somewhat neutral. Do we have a very similar number of green and red candles? Do we have some candles above or below? And then here you have candles that are within the range. So the ones that close between the previous price and previous moving average be in that range. This is kind of like a cloud indicator with your single moving average. Tons of information, and then you get your information about the moving average. These are actually the highest prices. I need to look at my code here. It's been a while since I've worked on this indicator. Whether or not these are the high, median, low for moving average or the price. This is the current price. This is your moving average. I think those are I think those are price. This is the only one about the moving. And if you're above the moving average, that's also got all 4 bullish. Great. All right, I'm gonna take a look at a few TradingView ideas. Covered plenty today. Wow, 13,000. Awesome. I only joined 5 years ago. Feels like so. Okay, go to the community. Trade ideas. Crypto. There we go. Don't get duped by the RSI. Education post. Let's see how educational. Kind of looks like AI wrote it. Yeah, I'm almost certain somebody had AI write this for. This sounds exactly like ChatGPT, right? And then they're adding some stuff to it. On TradingView, it looks like AI wrote it. Y'all should be. But yeah, RSI can stay overbought much longer you would expect, or they oversold longer than you expected. Well, Bitcoin, how a great idea became a speculative mania. What's up with these ideas? Wow. This person's very so they're all basing this on their own anecdotal evidence that they have a very strong bias that Bitcoin is worthless, and they think people are believing. Uh, no real good information. Again, this is kind of what we're looking at, except they redrew the triangle. I would not recommend redrawing. Put out there, especially once you've determined there is a triangle early. Maybe, maybe, maybe. But I do see some very good point toward consolidation. And consolidation I've been looking at with everyone has been sideways, downward consolidation pretty much for the rest of the month or even beyond. But the ETFs, in my opinion, do change things. Got the halving coming up. That's typically been a sell the news type of event in the past. I don't different but it will be volatile regardless. Let's get back to these ideas. Their moving average does seem holding. Whatever they're looking at here is pretty decent. Good idea. Oh, I forgot to. There you go. 80,000 USD. That is kind of the target I was looking at for drawn resistance. I close. Wanting to open along down here. Might get that today. Okay. I'm not so sure about this trend. I haven't draw that yet. They make their case. I had a decent idea on that. It did come down. So this is their fill area on that particular idea. Looking pretty good for them so far, but I'm not too convinced yet. Thanks for the credit. Thought in it. Ready for a crash. 8K, maybe. Wow. Wave analysis, bearish distribution. First posted April 1st. This is just an idea. Buying. You can tell they posted this at the highs yesterday. Another super bear. Another tape that I haven't seen before. Very interesting. Like sometimes they choose to include wicks, other times they don't. Why? People, you need to be consistent. If you're going to draw a pattern, draw them all. And this is kind of what I was looking at earlier, where we were talking about that breakout. But, we're back into this area now, back into their support zone. I was really hoping for that, something like that. My bags are packed. I'm not worried about making a trade right now. I was really hoping for something like that. We'll see. We're gonna look at the 4 hour. That's just, but you do have a lot of reason to be hopeful for a bounce. Even though you're back in that one triangle, there's some hope because of all the moving average. Some support available to you. I like what they were trying to do. I'll boost it because I think they had a solid idea at that time. Thing here, I don't like types of charts, but at least they drew effect. Then we're back into it. I'll boost. All right, I think I'm going to call that for the video. I do want you all to be aware of the new indicator that I am working on. Is that fancy moving average? I might just replace the with this code, and I've got a lot of great stuff out of this where I have learned uh, some of the new features with Pine, some of the updates, version 5, and maybe we can up there. Excited about it. Hopefully, I'll be back on tomorrow. Like and subscribe here on YouTube. Follow on X or Twitter. The handle is BigBitsIO. Hopefully, we get some good news later today. Otherwise, things are looking kind of rough for right now. Root for that bounce here on the hourly and the 4 hour. Some of these moving averages coming up. Otherwise, it's going to be a long week. But that's it for now, guys. Hope you all had a good one. I will see you